Hey everybody, just wanted to make a bit of a video guide for the No More Running challenge, which you have to complete in order to unlock Jules' D costume. So I just want to preface this by saying that no matter what, this challenge is going to be so annoying. This challenge essentially disables your movement keys during combat, so you'll have to rely on your weapon and the items you start off with to get around. The good news is that you only have to get through the normal ending to complete this challenge. It might take you a couple of tries to finally get through it all, but all in all it's very doable. Now, before we begin, let's quickly go over all the items you start off with. First, you start off with 3 bags of wind, which cause enemies to receive more knockback from your shots. And since you have 3 of them, it's quite a considerable difference. Next, you get 3 Kevlar backpacks. These are very important for this challenge, as they will enable you to completely block certain enemies and bosses' attacks. They're pretty simple to control. You just have to have good cursor movement if you want to quickly turn around to block projectiles in front of you. Bullet time slows down all enemy projectiles and boosts your agility. The agility bonus doesn't really help in combat, but slower enemy projectiles mean they're easier to dodge or block, so it's still a plus. You get 4 bunnies in total, 2 caramel and 2 rainbow. The 2 caramel bunnies increase your rate of fire, which is always nice for Jules, and especially so for this challenge. The 2 rainbow ones boost all of your stats, slightly. This also means you get 2 extra health to start off with. Up next is the dead rat, which makes it so chunks will never spawn again. Of course, this does mean you still have to fight him as the final boss, but now you can take your time exploring and fighting, as he won't bother you while you traverse the floors leading up to him. Thank God for this item though. Having to deal with chunks in this challenge, especially on the first floor, would be a death sentence. The 2 garlic necklaces make enemies approach you slower, which gives you a bit more time to kill them while they're up close, or quickly scooch away if they're about to hit you. Holy Aura goes hand in hand with bullet time, though instead of a global slowdown to all enemy projectiles, it only applies to ones that are near you. Still really good to give you a bit more time to either turn around and block them with the Kevlar backpacks, or just move out of the way. And finally, you get 2 super shells. These basically give your shotgun some additional range, and your projectiles some added speed. Combined with the bags of wind, you can keep enemies a good distance away. That's 17 items in total. I think that's the most you start off with in any of the challenges. To be fair though, removing any one of these items would make this challenge 10 times harder. Really quickly, the main items you'll want to look out for are ones that improve your projectiles, like ones that further increase their range or give them special effects. My favorite item for this challenge, and the item that made my first attempt at recording gameplay for this so easy that I had to vow to not pick up any items or buy any upgrades for this run that you're about to watch, is the busted microwave. This made it so that my bullets would kill enemies by just being near them with insane damage over time, effectively increasing my range, adding to my crowd control, and my overall damage. It was a real lifesaver, and it'll carry you throughout this whole challenge. Now that that's out of the way, let's move on to the gameplay overview. As I said before, your movement keys are disabled during combat, but when no enemies are around, you can move around freely like normal. Pay attention to the words that appear above Jules' head. Shackled means that there's an enemy in the room with you, and therefore you can't move normally. Unshackled means that the room is cleared, and you can now use your movement keys. Sometimes when you're destroying pots, you'll find yourself shackled and unable to move. This just means that a leech has spawned from one of the broken pots, so try to quickly find it before it gets a cheeky hit in. Lastly, I should add that this challenge will require a lot of quick cursor movements, so you should practice turning your character around at rapid speeds. Of course, I'm mostly talking about people playing with the mouse and keyboard, but controller players can probably pull it off too. Just make sure your hands are in a comfortable position. They're going to be moving around a lot. Now, the reason I say this is because the only way to move forward while in combat is to shoot behind you. After that, you'll have to quickly turn yourself back around to actually shoot your enemies, and be propelled back so you don't get hit. For just about every encounter, there's going to be a lot of these forward and backward mouse movements, so be prepared. This also applies to protecting yourself with the Kevlar backpacks, as you'll have to quickly turn around to block any incoming projectiles. A bit easier to do because of bullet time and holy aura, but you get the idea. Also, quick tip. Since you'll be moving your cursor around a lot, whether it's left to right or up and down, sometimes your items will get in the way and block your vision when your cursor accidentally hovers over one. If this is bothering you, you can turn off the items display in the settings to prevent this from happening. The first floor is relatively easy. Even fast zombies can be easily taken out without moving due to their slowed approach and your boosted fire rate. That being said, if you feel the need to move out of the way, you should, by shooting yourself to the left or right of them. The main thing you'll need to keep track of are hordes of enemies. When you're shooting at one enemy, you might accidentally be knocking yourself backward into another, so watch who and where you shoot. For these pimple zombies, you can either shove yourself close to them and take the shot, or wait for them to slowly approach you before shooting them. Either way, when they die, make sure you turn yourself around to block the projectiles they spew out. A lot of the enemies can be taken out in those two ways, so it's up to you to decide how proactive you want to be. Remember, you can take your time with these encounters, as chunks will never come to bother you. Despite everything though, you can still rely on Jules' great crowd control to take care of groups of enemies, such as these leeches. Now, this might be a bit disappointing to hear, but I would not count on beating any of the challenge rooms. I know, crazy, right? But seriously, it takes forever to kill anything. Even if you actually try killing things quickly, you'll either get hit a few times or just not end up winning anyway. It's better to just go in knowing you'll lose, but you'll get money out of it, instead of thinking you'll get whatever item's up for grabs. Now, I'm not saying you'll never clear a challenge room. You definitely could on the later floors, but on floor 1, your chances are pretty slim. If you do end up trying, or just want the money, a nice little tip is that you actually aren't shackled when the enemies are spawning in, so you can set yourself up to get a nice and up-close shot right when they spawn. Now, I didn't get them on this run you're currently watching, but these leech eggs are super annoying to fight. You have to be very careful with them. They're stationary, so they'll never get moved or knocked back by your shots, meaning you'll have to approach them no matter what. Keep an eye out for the leeches that spawn from them, as they could hit you right when you get close to the egg. On top of that, they'll spew a projectile right on your position, so be ready to turn around to block it. Either way, not a lot of the enemies here are all that hard to face, so let's move on to the bosses for this floor. They're both pretty easy, even while shackled. Keep in mind that they're both affected by knockback. Ultraclot is fairly simple. Try to keep your back to a wall and shoot it away. The smaller clots it spawns aren't really a problem, as long as you keep firing. The big jump it does will basically never reach you because of the garlic, so you could essentially just stay in a corner for the whole fight and you'll be fine. A little bit of patience is required if you want to go down this route, since you'll have to spend a bit of time waiting for it to come to you. For Queen Infestor, it's basically the same deal, though a bit more annoying as sometimes it feels like she runs so fast towards you. Literally though, it's just the same strategy of sticking to a wall or corner and constantly shooting her and the Infestor she spawns. The knockback will basically always keep her away from you. The only extra thing to keep in mind are the projectiles she spews out, which can be easily blocked when you're approaching her. All in all, the first floor is easily the simplest of the four. A lot of the enemies on this floor are pretty susceptible to knockback. The mannequins pose almost no threat because of this. Same with moths and cult knights. Hell's Mounts are pretty easily countered with the Kevlar backpacks. Just turn around to block their attacks, and approach when they're recharging. My main problem on this floor are the stalkers, these shadowy looking guys. Combined with other enemies, they are very easy to not see and get hit by, especially in these situations. They spawn very close to the door you entered from, so always make sure you do a quick scan for them. By themselves, they're pretty easy to take care of though. One thing this challenge makes you take into account is target priority. For example, I got hit here because I was prioritizing the knight above as opposed to the one whose flail was much closer to me. Always be thinking about who's about to hit you and who's still a bit too far away. Cagelings are a bit like the Hell's Mouths. Block the projectile when they shoot them, and approach them when they're readying another shot. Unlike the Hell's Mouths though, Cagelings are not stationary, and you have to jump to hit them. This makes it a bit more annoying to face them, as you have to re-approach with every hit, having to follow the pattern of blocking, attacking, then chasing them around the room. It's especially annoying when they start speeding up their attacks. So if you can find a way to take them out with 1 or 2 bursts, such as by boosting your damage, then it'll make your job a lot easier. When you do kill them though, you can jump over their projectiles if the room's clear or use your backpacks if it's not. And now, for the bosses. The Resident is a long fight. It's basically the same as usual. Stick yourself into this bottom corner and shoot the left and right sides to try to find him. The main difference is that your knockback will ensure he stays far away, so you'll either have to wait for him to get close before shooting or try to chase him around, though I don't recommend doing the latter. Once this attack is over, he'll charge up a bit before spewing projectiles in the air around him. During that short time, you can get in close and get some damage off, but make sure you're blocking when he starts firing. Once he's done, quickly get back into your corner, and then rinse and repeat this process until you win. This fight is easy, it's just a bit bothersome as you usually don't want to knock this boss around. You want to know where he is at all times, and knocking him around will make your damage very inconsistent. You really have to take your time with this one, and you don't really have much of a choice. Against Leviathan Egg, there's a silly little trick I like to do, though it will always be risky. First, start over on the right or left side of the arena, so you can more easily take out the knights before they reach you. Then, you'll want to get behind the egg as soon as you can. Keep in mind that it does still shoot projectiles behind it, so be wary. You can either wait for the bullet spam to be over, or use your backpacks to block it before unleashing as much damage as you can on it. Because the egg is stationary, and there's a wall behind you, you can get in a ton of damage without either of you moving anywhere, making for a quick kill. Again, this is a bit risky, so if you'd rather play it safe, just sit in the corner like normal, blocking all the projectiles before getting in close. Either way, I'd say this is a quicker and easier fight than the Resident, with either strategy. Okay, so floor 3 is where the difficulty starts to ramp up a bit more. There are a bunch of annoying enemies here, namely these big meat cubes called drops. What you're supposed to do is push yourself along one of the tiny corners around its shadow. So, it slams down as you're already a good distance away. But I kept messing it up, so it's a little bit tricky to do. You can sort of go directly under it, but you have to be really quick to completely cross over it before it touches the ground. If you have enough jump height, you can just jump to shoot it, but other than that, you're going to need to make it drop down. Once you do finally kill it, try to use your backpacks to block the projectiles it spews out if you aren't far away enough. These cult brutes are also a bit annoying to deal with. Even though they have a spiked ball attached to them, you'll still take damage if you touch the guys themselves. And sometimes, they're just way faster than you think. So try not to get cornered and make sure you land your shots on them. The knockback should be enough to keep them away indefinitely. Same thing with the crawlers, just make sure you keep hitting them and you should be fine. Kagus are a bit confusing. If you paid a bit of attention the other times I fought them, it seemed like they hit me, but I didn't take any damage. Just try to deal with them like you usually would and shoot them as they come toward you. Now, here is the main annoyance on this floor, and in my opinion, what can be the ultimate run killer. The soldiers and their hearts. These guys are, as you know, basically invincible. That means your shots will do nothing to them, which in turn means you can't knock them back. They can and will outrun you, and box you into a corner where you can't do anything but try and jump and shoot yourself away, so be very careful around them. The best strategy I use is to identify where the heart is. Then, make your way toward it as quickly as you can, pumping in some damage before scooting away and leading the soldiers around the room so you can circle back and try to kill it the second time around. It takes a bit of practice, but I've had a few times where I run to the heart right off the bat and kill it in 2 or 3 shots. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is where you have to train them around and get 1 or 2 shots off into the heart per cycle. It gets really annoying, but it's probably your safest bet. If there are other enemies in the room, you're going to have to avoid them as best as you can, because the soldiers are your top priority almost no matter what. Make sure you know what you're getting into. Anyway, for these cult magicians, you can actually touch them without taking damage, so you can get pretty close. The easiest way to deal with them is to shoot yourself towards them as they're charging up a shot. Your backpacks will block the projectiles they throw at you, so you don't have to worry about getting hit. Then, turn around and get in a nice hit before they teleport. Then repeat the process. Now for these long legs, you'll have to play around their shadow, kind of like with the drop enemies. Stand right under it for a second, then shoot yourself away right before it drops down. Get in some damage, and prepare to do it again. When its health gets lower, it'll get faster and add in some extra attacks, so get ready to scoot away quicker than before. It's a bit tough to kill these guys in one cycle, unless you use a wall and get it close enough to you. Rabbits are easy enough, just shoot them until they die. The knockback will help you greatly here. Axons are fairly easy to take care of, just shoot them and keep them as far away as you can. Let's go over the bosses now, starting with Nataleviathan. For its approach, just make sure you aren't standing directly underneath its shadow, and simply jump over the ring after it slams down. It is affected by knockback, so keep that in mind when you're shooting at it. You can actually block quite a few of its attacks, such as this aerial projectile spam. You do have to be a bit careful though, as sometimes they can still bonk you on the head. If you want to avoid them, don't jump, and watch the shadows to know where they're going to land. For the big, snot bubble, you can just delete it. This will give you a bit of free time to do some damage. And that's about it for Nat. Just make sure if you're shooting as the ring is approaching you, jump at the right time. If you jump too early, you might get hit. So, if you need to, stop shooting for a second, jump, and then keep firing once the ring is gone. Other than that, Nat should be a pretty easy fight. Now, for something that's not an easy fight, Pierrot. This fight is so annoying while shackled, because sometimes he'll just super jump towards you while you're trying to move away and get a free hit on you. This can kind of work in your favor, since he'll always be in range of your shotgun, but you better have the health on your end to back it up. When he jumps in the air, I like to lead him to the top corner of the room. Stand there for a bit so he locks in on your position, then move towards the bottom corner, making sure to block the tears he shoots out when he lands. He does get affected by knockback, but it doesn't always help. If anything, I wouldn't try to rely on it. Sometimes you can actually scooch under him as he's jumping, but I wouldn't risk it unless you have to. But that's basically it for this phase. Try to keep your distance and make sure you have plenty of health, just in case. His second phase is a lot easier, however. The best strategy, I think, is to just pick a corner and shoot him when he gets close. The knockback will keep him away, along with his constant direction changing, so just keep at it until he goes down. It might take a bit of time, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Ugh, damn clown. And now, the dreaded laboratory. You'll probably end up spending a good amount of time here, but it's almost the final stretch, so just bear with me. Like the other three, a good amount of enemies on this floor can be kept at bay with your shotgun, such as these mouse traps. Keep them away until you either kill them or they explode on their own. These eye spiders, or mutant reds as they're called, are a bit trickier. They don't attack you directly, and only retaliate when struck, so try to get in close and get a nice shot off. Your knockback should push you far enough away from the tears it shoots out, so just let it calm down and do the same thing again. The cult scientists are pretty simple to handle. You can block their whole ring of projectiles, or even delete them as he spawns them in, if you're close enough. Lab rats are fairly simple as well. They'll walk towards you, then lock into your position and charge straight forward. All you have to do is move over to the side. Mutant blues are annoying to deal with, even without being shackled. They're hard to hit, since they love to bob up and down, and you'll knock yourself out of range with every shot. Try to wedge yourself into a wall and jump as you fire. It might take a while to kill it, so don't get too frustrated. Healers can be a bit bothersome, especially when paired with the aforementioned mutant blue or other similar long to kill enemy. You might want to focus them first if your DPS isn't high enough to kill things before he heals them. Oozes are easy to fight, in theory. Keep them away and avoid the purple slime they leave behind. What usually gets you, though, is the environment. For example, here I'm fighting this ooze and the spike traps, forcing me to run around the whole room. Sometimes, you'll get stuck on some shelves, or a vat, or these crates in the middle here. It can just be a whole mess, so work around the room you're placed in. Mutant yellows are a bit wonky to fight. Try to let them get close, and block when you need to. Take note that they can be knocked back, so watch where the projectiles shoot out from. And although I did say this was an itemless run, I did have to buy an ambrosia. Okay, I know. The horror.
You need to leave!
Anyway, it's time to talk about the bosses. Let's start with the experiment first, since it's the easiest. A lot of this fight is the exact same as on a regular run. Watch the ground to know where the fists are going to pop out of, then avoid his blood, burp. Then, you can block all the projectiles he summons. Make sure to get in some shots when nothing's going on, and that's about it. Again, try to use a wall to make it easier to get some shots off and not get yourself out of range. Either way, take your time with this fight. There's no time limit, so don't rush and get yourself hit. If at any point you feel like you're going to get hit by a projectile, just turn yourself around. They're all relatively easy to block. And now, on to Cybil. She's probably the toughest boss in this entire run, even rivaling Chunks. The best piece of advice I can give you is to actually learn the fight. Know her attack patterns, and when you have the best chance to attack. First, she'll usually dash at you like that, so don't be like me and run straight towards her. Move to the side. Next, she'll summon a ring of projectiles around her. Remember the cult scientists, and how you can delete their projectiles as he spawns them? Yeah, the same strategy applies here, and this time it'll save you from having to deal with a much more annoying attack. Make sure you watch Cybil closely, because sometimes she'll do this cheeky attack, where she'll quickly shoot a line of projectiles at you. It can happen very suddenly, so in between your shots, be prepared to turn around and block. Then she'll usually teleport, dash towards you again, and repeat the cycle. If you don't block all of her projectiles here, you can block them a bit easier when they get supersized. Sometimes, when she starts getting low on health, Cybil will shoot into the air, then come slamming back down. Both of these actions will shoot out a ring of blood, so don't let her land on you and get ready to block. The easiest way to consistently block this attack is to get right up close to her, almost in hugging distance, and turn yourself around. If you aren't close enough to her, you might not block everything, as you've seen before. It's a bit tricky to get the distance right, but that's what practice is for, right? In the end, the key to succeeding in this fight is to be ready for quick bursts of movement. Keep your eyes on what Cybil is doing and react accordingly, but remember, you can block 90% of her attacks. And now, finally, we move on to the big bad himself, Chunks. So right after the lock is destroyed, I like to position myself right on this black smudge. It's a nice spot that's far enough away so that Chunks doesn't land directly on me, but I can get a nice shot off right at the start of the fight. Anyway, Chunks' projectile spam can be blocked, letting you approach him fairly easily. Once he's done though, he will lock onto your position and charge you in a straight line, just like the lab rats. Unlike them though, Chunks will only do it in the beginning, and as his health gets lower, he'll instead chase you around until he hits a wall. For this attack, you can approach as the projectiles get shot towards you, and when there's a gap, you can get some damage in before having to turn around. You'll have to be pretty quick here though, as the gaps in his attacks can be fairly inconsistent, and he can be really fast about sending more projectiles your way. Although, if you get close enough, you can completely negate this attack. You just won't be able to get any damage in. After that, it's pretty much just rinse and repeat, adjusting a bit when his health starts getting lower. He'll start to spam even more projectiles, and as I mentioned before, he'll chase you around with his shoulder charge. Try to push him into a wall with your knockback to briefly stun him in place and stop the chase. Oof, bars. But, just like normal Jules gameplay, everything is 10 times easier if you just run a different, better weapon. And now, congratulations! You just completed one of the most tiring, annoying, and overall hardest challenges in the game, and unlocked a new costume for Jules. You should be proud of yourself. I know I am. Of you, I mean, not of me. Anyway, thank you for watching. I might make more of these challenge guides, though this script is almost twice as long as a character review video. Either way, I hope this helped you in some way. Make sure you subscribe if it did, and leave a like if you enjoyed watching. Good luck, drive safe, and have yourselves a good one.